There we go. I mean, without fail, I just always find a way not to know how to do this.
It's
There's
good.
always something.
As long as we just get that first one over and through with, then we're golden on the next one. So it's like it never happened.
Yeah. Oh man, how you been doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm fired up. I just watched some Kansas City Chiefs preseason play. They lost, but there was a lot to be excited about. Some
Right
to
on.
be, some to be bummed about, but it was great to see football again.
Oh yeah, nothing like it. I've kind of disappointed myself. I haven't watched a ton this weekend, but um, hopefully next weekend I'll put some on. I know the Cowboys played the Jags. That's interesting. We're gonna talk about the Jags here later with AFC
Yeah.
South. But yeah, man, a lot of fun stuff ahead of us tonight. Find Your Inner Pirate. We're doing Twitter Spaces as well, so hopefully
Oh,
hopefully sometime soon we get some listeners in here, Drew. But I mean, we got so much fire. I mean, I guess we just keep it to ourselves for now.
I'm gonna tweet it out right now. I sent a little reminder yesterday, and I'm gonna tweet it out right now. But we'll see. I think also commenting on some stuff and posting some tweets on the day of, how the little icon it'll have a purple ring around when you're speaking.
Yeah,
If we get our names out there and people are seeing our comment and we're live, they may join. That's
yeah,
maybe a little trick we should do on the day of. Let's tweet a whole bunch,
yeah.
spread the name out there, then go live, and boom. That's when all the viewers see your icon. They may click in and listen. We'll try
Hey, we
that.
got we got a listener in here now.
All right, here we go.
But yeah, man, a lot of fun stuff ahead of us tonight. We did NFC North last podcast, talked about the Lions, Drew, and the Lions. I think first guy we want to start out with in this running back crop. What do you got on David Montgomery? You like them bringing him in?
I love both the Lions running backs because I mean we saw what it's the offensive line. The offensive line, I believe, carried Jamal Williams last year and DeAndre Swift for what he had, and they spent a first rounder on another running back, but I still love Montgomery because I think they're gonna feed it to him on the touchdowns, and
Yeah,
I find myself just drafting as much of both of their running backs as I can. Um,
yeah.
I love him. What are your thoughts on him?
I think it's interesting with him and Gibbs together. I think they can both coexist, and I think, like you said, Drew, short yardage situations, Montgomery's going to be the guy in those. So definitely, he's got some upside for some good touchdown potential. And he's a big running back, and Gibbs is like it's like thunder and lightning with them. So I think with that offensive line, like you mentioned, there's no reason not to be somewhat excited about Montgomery. I think it's definitely an upgrade from Chicago. Just the offensive line and should have a little bit better quarterback passing game that will kind of, you know, if with the Bears over the years, teams were just stacking the box because there's just not a real passing threat there at quarterback. We talked about Fields a little bit last week, but yeah, I can't help but think as long as he stays healthy, this should I think he's going around pick 80 right now.
Yeah, he's 77 ADP right now.
Yeah, so I like that. I like that value for him.
I do too. Um, you know, Speaking of the value though, there's always other options
Hmm.
at your current pick. Ideally I like to take the choosing of if I have three options, I like to pick my favorite of those three rather than three are there and I'm going to see if one of them falls to me the next round. I'd rather go for just taking who I want right there. And
Yeah.
this next guy I've just been on and off with with the Denver Broncos. You know, Javonte Williams, he started off last year and he looked like exactly what what we all thought he was. But
Hmm.
then he gets his injury, he's out for the year. It's still just kind of a question mark there. And
Yeah.
again, this question, there certainly is a bias on people who were injured last year. Is it rational or is it not? I I don't pretend to know the answer of can you predict someone's injury the next year. But typically I don't find myself drafting someone like Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Javonte?
Yeah, it's tricky because he's coming off an AC. It wasn't just an ACL tear; he actually tore his LCL as well. And I just that's a is he ever going to have that same burst, that same explosion? That's my question with him. And he was kind of a fantasy darling, wasn't he, last year? Like this time last year, Drew.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
So I
he was
don't.
picked much higher than this.
Yeah, I don't want to completely write him off. If he's going to be is he healthy to start the year? I don't know.
I said
Um.
they. I saw that they believe that he's going to be the starter week 1. I
Okay.
haven't seen any highlights from him, so I'm assuming he's being held out, and I guess they'll unveil him week 1.
This was a guy that Bill Simmons had on his team last year, and he would just always bring up about how the Broncos don't use him enough. It would just drive him crazy.
Well, Jay, the other thing is, I mean, who's their other option? So here you have in the late 70s Javonte Williams, but the other option would be I'm going to pass on him and I'm all in on Samaje Perine a little bit
Yeah.
later in the draft. And
Samaje, baby.
we're not covering that tier right now. We'll save that for another day. But typically I find myself drafting a lot more Samaje Perine over Javonte.
Right
Just
on.
just how I see my own drafts unfolding.
Yeah.
So is that a rational one? I don't know, but yeah, I don't like injuries at the running back position,
Yeah.
um, and I don't like that I haven't seen anything from him. I'm out
Yeah.
on Javante.
Gotta respect that. Gotta respect that. Who's up next, Drew?
So it's interesting. We talked about him already, and he's with a whole new team. He's back with his old college buddies. It feels like they've rebuilt the Georgia roster.
Oh yeah.
DeAndre Swift got traded to the Eagles.
Uh-huh.
He's with a stable of running backs. I mean, they've got Rashad Penny. He's you know, and what did we see from DeAndre Swift that we love? He's been a highly touted prospect for a long time, but the reality
Yeah.
is he was traded for a conditional seventh.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is not a guy that um, has a whole lot behind his value at that time. Um, but you kind of love the destination and you kind of love
Yeah.
the coaching staff. Is it worth a 79 ADP pick
Mm.
when there's somebody else right behind him? What do you think? I mean, they traded for him for a reason. They got him on this roster.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on DeAndre?
I think DeAndre Swift is a better real life running back than fantasy running back, especially when you consider the situation he's going to be in. I think really his big issue, highly touted guy out of Georgia, like you mentioned, and they're kind of, Roxy, what are you doing? My cat's going crazy. Um. Anyways, DeAndre Swift, man, it's just injury concerns, and I think the Eagles, man, I really like that Kenneth Gainwell, and I just wouldn't be surprised if this was just like a 50-50 Swift Gainwell, and they got Rashad Penny in there as well.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't get excited, even though he is such a talent. He is, and the Eagles are going to want to run the ball. And Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts being the running threat he is, really opens up some run lanes for the running backs. So I'm not saying he can't put up some good numbers. I'm sure he will. But I just, man, they like Kenneth Gainwell a lot, and I'd be surprised if they just fed Swift 15 to 20 times. I just don't know if he's going to get enough touches.
Let me ask you this. If same thing we did with Denver. If DeAndre Swift, then just real quickly, who would your target be in Philadelphia at their respective ADPs? Rashad Penny is below DeAndre Swift, and below Rashad is Kenneth Gainwell.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I kind of want to stay away from all of them.
Okay.
Just something about Kenneth Gainwell, man. He's good. Where's his ADP? Do you know?
He can be had in the 16th or 17th round. Those are the two
Yeah,
last.
I like him in like a best ball, just last running back on your roster because I think he gets some good red zone looks too. They like to throw him the ball.
I mean, he was, relatively speaking, he was disappointing last year fantasy, and he was also a highly
Mm,
touted not highly touted, but he was considered as someone um, to draft in those last rounds, but he
yeah,
disappointed last year. We'll move on. It sounds like none of us are sold on the Philadelphia running backs, and I
yeah. I just think it's better real life than fantasy, just because it's going to be very, they're going to feed. They got too many mouths to feed, if you will.
no doubt. Well, speaking of mouths to feed, the next guy does not have that problem at all. I mean, he may be the star of that roster, and it's saying something that we're at ADP 80. And we're talking about James Conner from Arizona Cardinals. I mean, he is the mouth to feed there.
Oh yeah, no Kyler either for first start of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think that they're going to try and get him involved. And I've always thought James Conner, really cool story, comes out of Pittsburgh University. I believe he survived cancer, or I'm pretty sure it was cancer. And like really shook him up his senior year. I don't think he really got drafted. I don't remember where he got drafted. The Steelers had him, but just a really cool story. And yeah, I think he's in line to get a lot of touches. I mean, Arizona's not going to be very good, but no DeAndre Hopkins, no Kyler. He is kind of one of their more dynamic weapons.
I thought it was funny. Earlier in the year of drafting in on Underdog, doing best ball fantasy drafts, Underdog had tweeted out, it's crazy that James Conner can be had at pick 75, and they had like brain exploding emoji, and he's dropped since then.
Uh huh.
And it was crazy at that time, and I think it's crazy now. This is the guy I target, James Conner, because what other option do you have down there in Arizona? They have to do something. They have to give the ball to somebody, and I just feel like
Yeah.
everybody's down on Arizona. You know, Mike Florio has said it multiple times on Pro Football Talk. He thinks Arizona has mailed it in to get the number one pick to draft that great quarterback prospect, Caleb
Hmm.
Williams. And I
Yep.
think everybody's writing off the Cardinals. But there's James Conner, you know, um, you have Kyle Trask throwing to Marquise Brown, and it's, it
That's
doesn't
sad.
look bright. It doesn't look bright, but I do think James Conner is just. I mean, he's been the leader this offseason. He tweeted out, or he spoke out. and spoke about that very fact that everybody's down on the Cardinals, and he said, "I think we're going to surprise some folks."
Yeah, James Conner, he's a chip on his shoulder kind of guy. You know, he plays with a little bit of an edge, and I think he's in line. I would say this guy's getting 10 touchdowns this year at least, Drew. Rushing and receiving combined. I'm going to go ahead and say that 10 touchdowns for James Conner, and he's one of the better receiving running backs that you don't think about. He really
He
is,
is,
and he
yeah,
just has to stay healthy. He's a lot like DeAndre Swift, a lot like a lot of these running backs. You got to
yeah.
stay healthy.
I think you got to assume. I mean, he has had a full off season behind him. Um, yeah, he did have an injury last year, but he got back on the field. So I don't mind just ignoring the injury risk there,
Yeah,
just going straight for the upside.
yeah. Same here. I'm buying James Conner.
Yeah. So, I mean, the next guy is honestly a very similar situation. Um, you have one other team that, has kind of planned for this year to be a year that they're going to mail it in. The front office of, and we're, by the way, we're talking about Rashad White from the Buccaneers. The the front office of the Buccaneers during Tom Brady's couple of years there, I mean, they went all in cash wise. They're paying off the credit card this year and next year. That's a known fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I, a lot of there's some stuff to be excited about. Obviously, you have some great wide receivers there, but nobody else at the running back position. They got rid of Leonard Fournette. They drafted Rashad White on
Yeah,
day 2 of the draft last year. This is a guy who got plenty of carries last year as well, especially towards the end of the year. I think it's crazy that he's down here at 82.
yeah,
Guys like Javonte Williams and DeAndre Swift go ahead of Rashad White. I get this guy whenever I can.
yeah. I like that thinking. I like the way you're thinking about this, Drew, because I think a lot of people are just going to write the Bucks off now that that Tampa's not there. It goes back to just being Tampa Bay, and I don't know. This is still a really good defense, right? I think the Bucks are going to be in some games. Baker's going to be the guy there, and Baker's a guy you don't want him throwing it 30, 40 times if you don't have to. And Rashad White comes in there. I mean, it's been a long time since the Bucks had a good running back too, and maybe they're just due. Maybe this is a gut feeling with us, Drew. Rashad White is going to have a good year. I agree with what you're saying. And I
Well,
really haven't watched much of them, I'll be honest, but just a vibes thing.
yeah, I mean, just the situation that he's in, and it's it's a well-known idea nowadays that a running back's production is pretty well tied to the amount of opportunities they get.
Uh huh.
I mean, they're going to produce for you because it's why they'll draft him in the 7th round and not pay a guy who was just an all pro for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's I think in today's world where you're passing so much, handing it off to the running back, probably anybody can do it. And if a guy is just going to have a lot of opportunities, I think you go for it. I think we're both in agreement there. And the next guy is a guy that I think if he does have the opportunities, then this guy could be potentially a league winner.
Oh,
I mean,
that gets me excited.
that's what I'm going in with this. You know, he's on a high-powered offense. His brother is that stud running back, who has been great for so long. We're talking about James Cook from the
Oh,
Buffalo Bills.
baby.
The reason why I like James Cook so much is I watched the Pat McAfee show, and they had Buffalo GM Brandon Bean on. He's
Hmm.
a friend of the show over there, and he came on and said, "We're going to run the ball a lot more with Josh." It was wild that he was going into this, but basically, Josh Allen, they want to run the ball less with him. They want him to air it out a little bit more, and they want to rely on their running backs more.
Uh-huh.
And I think they just kind of want to take the pressure off of Josh.
Yeah.
And this guy, I owned him in fantasy last year, and I'm a Chiefs fan. I just found myself watching every Bills game that I could, if we're being honest. And I owned him in fantasy, so I was watching him specifically, and it was so frustrating because
Yeah.
every time he got the ball, he went for 6, 7, 8, 15 plus yards.
Hmm.
But they just gave it to him so infrequently. And then you saw Devin Singletary go out there. It just was frustrating. He doesn't have Devin Singletary in front of him. This guy was a second rounder last year, one of the best running backs out of that class. And he just
Right.
did not get the opportunities, but when he got them, he did great. We know who his brother is. Let's not get it confused. Love James Cook
Yeah.
at 86.
Guy that's just been slept on a lot of his career because he is the younger brother to Dalvin. He went to Georgia where you can kind of get overshadowed by a lot of star players around you. And I agree with what you said, Drew. He showed some real flashes and limited action last year. I think James Cook is a guy, he comes in there, he's running back one now, and one of the
Yeah.
best offenses in the league. I mean, there's no reason not to get excited about this guy. I've definitely drafted him a couple times already.
Yeah.
Um, and I hope he doesn't get screwed over at the goal line. I could see this being one of those guys that are like, well, maybe bring in, I don't even know who their backup is, but I could see him getting screwed over a little bit with touchdowns. And Josh Allen, he runs a lot of touchdowns in himself. But this guy should go for 1,000 all-purpose yards.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned uh, he could be a guy who gets screwed out of his touchdown yards. That's that's exactly what he's been accused of. I mean, he is an undersized guy.
Yeah,
That's the problem. And excuse me, I'm looking up the depth chart right now. I just clicked the wrong thing.
I think it's Naheem Hines, who's more of a special teams kind of
So
pass catching.
he just got hurt.
Oh,
That
really?
Yeah, we'll get into your soon enough.
Well, that's good for James Cook, man. He should get a lot of touches this year.
Yeah, yeah. But regardless, I don't remember the guy's name. So is he that important?
I don't think so.
So I mean, James Cook, he's the guy. That's the offense you want to have.
Did they get Damian Harris?
Yes, that's it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Damian Harris could be the short yardage guy that gets. I wouldn't mind. We're not talking about him today, are we, Drew?
We're not going to get into him. You know, James Cook, I really think is the guy to target there over Damian
Yeah,
Harris.
I do too. I just think Harris, though, won't be surprised if he gets like 6 touchdowns this year, just randomly.
They have 400 yards. We'll
But
see.
James Cook, get excited about him because I do think he showed some flashes last year. He just needs that running back one, and I think that's what he's getting this year in Buffalo.
Yeah. The next one gets a little bit more fuzzy because, um, and I'm going to add one more wrinkle into the mix here. So we've got Alvin Kamara, pick 88.
Oh,
And, this is a guy who's been prolific. He had his incident last off season. He punched a guy. Assault.
just couldn't handle Vegas.
He kicked his ass as well. He couldn't handle it. I saw him today, Jay, and he looked good.
You
Chiefs
saw him in
played
real life?
no, Chiefs played the Saints.
Oh yeah.
Shit, I
You
hope I
better
don't see
watch
him in
out,
real
bro.
life. He'll he'll be coming after my ass after I tell him my fantasy football thoughts
Yeah.
about
You
him.
better take it easy.
Yeah. Um, so this, here's a guy we know is prolific. I saw him today. He was great, looked awesome. We know the facts are he's suspended for how many games? 4?
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Week 4.
Yeah.
Oh, he's
Week
suspended the
4,
first 3 games.
3 games. You know,
Goodell took it easy on him.
and it's fair. He came out afterwards, and I heard what he said. He was took accountability for his actions, apologized, and it was well written by Goodell's lawyers. Uh, but Alvin Kamara, here he is, 88. You get a huge count on him if you believe
Yeah.
he's going to come back week 4 and dominate. But he's also got Jamal Williams,
Mm.
and they also drafted with a pretty high draft pick, Kendre Miller out
Oh
of
yeah.
TCU.
Out of TCU, he's electric.
It's messy, but here you have Alvin Kamara sitting at 88. What do you think, Jay?
Um, it's tough to say, Drew, because at first you were talking, I was like, yeah, this is going to be a steal. But then when you talk about Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller, I mean, maybe this is the Saints saying, you know what? I don't know what his contract situation is, but I'm sure it's up soon. This could be the Saints saying, okay, it's time to transition into a little bit of a new era with our running back room. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially if Jamal and Kendre tear it up the first 3 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if Kamara's brought back and just like he won't be a 3 down running back like he has been. I don't think. He's getting up there in age, and I think he was pretty good last year from what I remember seeing him. But I don't know, man. This could be a guy that maybe the curtain's closing a little bit on him in New Orleans.
The curtain's closing on Alvin Kamara. I mean, it's just incredible. There's nothing wrong with him except for his one incident. You would think. I mean, right? You would think he'd be the RB1 there if he wasn't suspended.
Yeah, I just think
But
Jamal Williams, maybe it was just that Detroit offensive line, but I think Jamal Williams, it's just hard to say with the Saints offense. It's hard to get excited about it. You know, I mean,
well,
Derek Carr.
honestly, Jay, I was going to text you earlier, and we'll talk about it when we get to them. But I want to tell you to bet on the Saints making the playoffs.
Oh shit.
You know what? They tore up our first team defense, who would be pretty good. It's without Chris Jones, but
They look good.
they, Jay, when I tell you they looked great. Dennis Allen was locked in preseason. I loved to see it. I mean, he was and Derek Carr looked like he had something to prove.
What did he look like in the black and gold?
He looked different. He had always I always thought he looked like he was crying a little bit and at the
Yeah.
later and he always looked like he had some mascara under the eyes or something. And he just looked a little strange always.
Yeah.
He looked cool, calm, collected. He looked like a different Derek Carr. And they had their tight ends running up and down the field. You know who they've got? They've got
Taysom Hill.
they've got Taysom Hill. They've got Jawan Johnson, who was a beast,
Yeah.
and they signed Jimmy Graham, 36 years old. He's
Old
back.
man Jimmy
Boy.
Graham.
He's back with the boys. They've got Chris Olave, who looked great.
Yeah. They got a good
So
defense too.
I mean,
So I can see that. We're gonna talk about them next
we'll
next
talk about them.
Sunday.
I'm gonna, and I've got some words about them, but I brought up the ages. We'll just go over that real quick because you mentioned it. Alvin Kamara, 28 years old. Jamal Williams, 28 years old.
Yeah.
So
This could
there
be a run them into the ground season and then
it could
say adios.
it could. You can have Jamal Williams a little bit later in the draft if that's the guy who you prefer. And I'm not against either of them or Kendra Miller.
Yeah,
Uh,
it'll be I'll be very interested to see how the touches are split between those three.
yeah.
And that's interesting with the Saints. I you are kind of making me drink the Kool-Aid a little bit, but I've already bet the Vikings, Packers, and Seahawks all to make the playoffs. And
Really?
so if I do another NFC, I mean, maybe I just do it all. Maybe I just do all four of those.
Yeah.
There's only 3 wild card spots though, so I don't know.
I liked him, and they pulled up the quarterback competition in that NFC South. You know, just we'll bring it back to Kamara. Uh, Kamara. I don't find myself just loving this situation, even though he is who he is.
Yeah,
We know that about him. Just the suspension and the guy's nipping at his heels. Something about it doesn't make me want to go after him as the top running back in that stable over there in New Orleans. But I love the team.
yeah. This is also one of those situations where it's like, oh, you think they're gonna have 3 good running backs, but then football happens and somebody inevitably is gonna get injured.
Yeah,
And I don't want to wish that on any of these guys, but I guarantee you one of these 3 guys is gonna get injured, because that's just how it seems to always go.
and it might be the guy whose hamstrings are, not working out during 3 weeks of suspension. Who
Hmm.
knows? We're
Yeah,
gonna
good
slide into
point.
our last guy here. One I know very well. He's, I'll say, I think the last starting quarterback or starting running back that you can choose.
Hmm.
Isaiah Pacheco, Kansas City Chiefs,
Yeah, I
the
love them.
most pass heavy team in the league.
I love Pacheco because he just runs like a madman. He just runs pissed off. And I heard somebody say it one time. That's the most important trait in a running back is do they run pissed off?
Huh.
And that's what this guy does, Drew.
Yeah. Yeah, he really does.
Was very impressed with him in the playoffs last year also.
But the problem, if there is a problem with it, it's that he gets his touchdowns robbed. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's just not a very run heavy team because they, I mean, talk about the receivers and the tight ends that they spread the ball to. They also love Jerick McKinnon, who is back. And Jerick McKinnon is the best, as small a guy as he is, he's the best pass blocker
Oh
that's
yeah.
out there at the running back. Yeah, so they put him in on every single passing play. And he
Hmm.
knows how to catch the ball, and he takes a lot of those in for touchdowns.
Yeah.
Is Pacheco that guy? He isn't. He's the guy they give it to throw off the defense every now and then.
Yeah.
Oh, we still can run. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, that definitely limits his upside if he
It does.
can
I mean,
if he has trouble getting loose out there, and it is such a pass heavy scheme. um I definitely see what you're saying. Is the former first rounder Clyde the Glide Edwards Helaire, is he gonna get cut?
oh God, I hope so.
I know Chiefs Kingdom's kind of over him.
We're so over him because we're sitting here looking at um add one more to the mix. Everybody wants Justin Ross to make.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody, and that means if they cut him, they have to just basically light a couple $1 million on fire and cut Richie James or Justin Watson.
Mm.
If or they keep Justin Ross and they keep 7 wide receivers. And now you want to throw one more in. It's Nico Remigio, who the fan base fell in love with today.
Hell
So
yeah.
now you're looking at the running back spot, and there's a running back that the Kingdom has fallen in love with. And you sit there and look at Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Oh, everybody's done with him. Everybody would love to see him cut and one of these other young kids take his spot.
Yeah.
So, but you have Pacheco, Clyde very well may make it, and you have McKinnon, and you
Yeah.
have this young kid who they love for special teams. He'll make it,
Yeah.
And now you look at Isaiah Pacheco, and it's like, God, I can see why he's the last running back taken.
Yeah. I
Not
agree.
last starting running back.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. That's interesting, Drew. Really interesting crop of running backs right there. Who, if you had to just pick one guy out of that crop, who would you pick? James Cook?
James Cook, no doubt.
Yeah, me too.
If I can, I love to get two of these guys. I mean,
Uh huh.
this is the tier that I target to fill out my running back room, and then after them, just say done, because
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a good crop of them in there.
Yeah, and it's good to talk it out with this group too, because when you look at them just on paper, you're like, man, it's kind of hard to say, but that's why doing these deep dives is so important, and
Yeah.
it's gonna it's gonna really help us see the board. I assume, are you just gonna keep drafting all the way till the season starts, or
Yeah,
you're
not so. It's just the slow ones.
yeah
So just I always keep myself in the loop, but I feel like my best drafting is done early.
yeah
Getting Guy Moore at pick 130. Now he's at 90.
oh
Get,
yeah that's gotta feel great.
getting him filled in 50% of my rosters, I almost just don't really want to mess with the exposure that I have. I feel like I did some great early drafts and I kind of just want to mail it in,
Yeah, no, that
and
makes sense.
good.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
So yeah, let's go ahead. Let's turn it over to the AFC South, Drew.
let's do
Um,
it.
Not a great division. It's not, but I am pretty high on all four of these head coaches. Um, you got two first-time head coaches, D'Amico Ryans. He's coming over from the Niners, and you got Shane Steichen coming over from the Eagles. And I like both of them. But then you got two grizzly old
Uh,
veterans in Doug
love
Peterson and Mike Vrabel. So I love that contrast in this division. And Mike Vrabel, for my money, he might get the most out of his team's talent than any other head coach.
no doubt.
I mean, but when you talk about the AFC South, you got to start with my Jags.
Uh
Duval. Hell yeah, baby. This is the Jags division to lose.
It's your team, no
These are
doubt about
my
that.
guys. Minus 175 to win this division. Pretty heavy favorites. But there's a lot of reasons I chose the Jags as my Madden franchise team last year. This is an up and coming squad. There's just they're a sexy pick to make a lot of noise this year, and I'm not sure they're real contenders just yet, but man, it's hard not to get excited about nice young crop players they got coming in.
I mean, I don't think that's necessary to say that you don't think that. I think they are the best team in that division. They were in the playoffs last year. They gave Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs a big run for their money. I mean, that was a
Yeah.
scary playoff game. I look at them as honestly the de facto winners in here, even though there's a couple things, there's a couple losses, but there's a couple additions I think to be really excited about.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and they're so interesting because they were down 27-0 to the Chargers. They did kind of take advantage of a soft schedule and snuck in the playoffs. But also, Drew, you see the upside with this team, that Chiefs game you're referring to.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get to watch a ton of that. I was at a wedding, but it looked like the Jags really came in, and they're interesting because they're so young, and but this is a very important year because they got some guys that are going to want to get paid soon. Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence. Um, but
Yeah.
I love the Jags, man. Some of the best uniforms in the NFL as well. I love how rowdy Duval gets.
I mean, I will say they had, you know, last year they had one of the best right tackles in the league. He's now playing for the Kansas City Chiefs, which I'm
Yeah.
happy he looked great today. But other, you know, this is a team with one of the star and up and rising quarterbacks of the league right now. I mean,
Uh-huh.
he was in the playoffs last year. We're not waiting on Trevor Lawrence to arrive. He's arrived.
Yeah.
And he's got now a new weapon. I mean, last year they were awesome with they had Zay Jones. They had they had made the big splash signing at the wide receiver. Added
Mm-hmm.
Calvin Ridley this year.
Yep.
I mean, it's a pretty good team for Lawrence to throw. Not you know not to discount even Evan Ingram. He's
Oh
another
yeah.
guy I love to take.
If he
It's
just doesn't drop the fucking ball,
yeah.
he always drops it on my team.
Well, you know, he's he's actually one of the higher rated tight ends this year in the draft. And I remember him last year. He had some really good plays when he does catch the ball.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
Drew. This offense is there's a lot to be excited about. Um, Doug Peterson, and he's an Andy Reid disciple. So that's probably another reason why you saw them go out and get Taylor. They probably just run such a similar scheme that it was able to work out. Trevor Lawrence is interesting though, Drew, because I watched him his whole career at Clemson, and he was really labeled the best prospect since John Elway. I'm not convinced he's ever going to be that, but he does miss some easy throws at times, and I love the guy. I I don't know, Drew. I do think I know him better than a lot. I just don't know if he's the most natural, accurate quarterback. He's got such a rock. He's so raw. It's
yeah,
it's hard to say. I do think he's a guy will win an MVP, will win a Super Bowl someday. It's just I kind of want everybody to tap the brakes just a bit on this Jags team, just a bit,
very interesting.
because
So last
there's yeah. Go ahead.
they went on a run last year at the end, and they rallied so much that they got to the playoffs. I mean, and a lot of people, will say Doug Peterson just really came into his own, and Trevor Lawrence rallied along with him. And
Hmm.
that might be where the hype comes from. What do you think about that run that they made last year?
Um, it was great. I just think it was kind of an easy schedule. it's hard to say though because they did beat the Cowboys and they beat some good teams. And Ridley coming in, they draft Tank Bigsby out of Auburn. I think him and ETN are going to be a real nice 1-2 punch. I mean, this should be one of the better offenses on paper. But losing Jawan Taylor could hurt. It could hurt them. They draft Anton Harrison, another OU product. Is he ready to compete against all these edge rushers in the NFL? I
He
don't
was
know.
drafted to do so. I mean, he
Yeah,
was a rounder.
I just think he's another guy I watched a lot. I think he might need a year or two to really settle in. But yeah, I get the hype train here. I do. I want to be like the guy that's like saying I want to be the guy that's like leading the hype train. I do, but I've seen this a lot in the NFL. They're a little bit like the Lions of the NFC. They're just kind of the hype team this year
Uh,
in the AFC, and I get a little scared. I get a little scared about that.
that's fascinating hearing it from you. I mean, this is your team.
I defensively, they got a lot of talent too. Trayvon Walker,
Yeah.
Tyson Campbell, really good cornerback. Andre Cisco. I mean, they got some guys, but it starts up front. They gotta get after the quarterback better with Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker. I mean, it's gotta be better.
You know,
And
I totally see what you're saying here. I think I'm picking up, and I would not have thought of it honestly until you're bringing it up. But there is just some missing element there.
I think so. The major weakness on their defense is nickelback, where Trey Herndon plays. I think I really was hoping they were going to go out and upgrade that position this offseason. I mean, they got one of the best linebacking rooms in the league with Oluwakan, Devin Lloyd, Chad Muma, my boy. So yeah, they got talent everywhere on this team. And Doug Peterson, he is a little bit like some of these offensive coaches that, for whatever reason, they're so good at offense. Sometimes I don't think their teams have that like grit to them. And maybe
Uh,
this Jags team, I don't know if they're old enough, if they're mature enough to have that like real winning instinct, that grit that you need. And I think that's kind of when you talk about, they're kind of like the opposite of the Titans in that regard. They really are. We'll get to the
yeah.
Titans here in just a sec. Um, but yeah, Jacksonville, Duval County. I am excited. I'm excited to see them this year, and they probably are going to win this division. They got schedule isn't that bad. 12th easiest. They're -1 in the net rest edge. So 9.5 wins is the win total. Drew, what do you think?
I mean, I'm taken aback. I'm thinking about Trevor Lawrence is kind of the main point that you made in there. And
Yeah,
one of those moments where your mind just gets flipped around, and it's because of new information. I do think in terms of what you're looking at, which is, do you take the over or the under? I just feel like taking the under.
yeah,
And it's a tough division. Or no, not so much division, but tough AFC,
yeah.
tough conference.
They
And
should win 10 games. They should, but it's the Jags. It's
easily slip a couple away.
yeah.
Easily, if he
I just
throws.
don't know if they have that like if Trevor has that like it clutch factor. And I
Yeah.
know he won a national championship. I know he he is a great. I just don't know. There is just something that throws me off a little bit. He misses some easy throws, and I'm sure I'll look like an idiot when he does put it all together. Because when he does, he's gonna be top 5 in the league. But I just don't. When you think about guys like Justin Herbert, I don't think he's in that realm. And I think I've seen a lot of people try and throw him in that Justin Herbert. I think Jalen Hurts is ahead of him as a quarterback. I really do. So like I don't know. I don't think he's even top. I think he's kind of around that Kirk Cousins level to me right now, but definitely has the upside to be a top 5 guy someday.
You know, I've just thought of him as, as I said at the beginning of this, as or I called him, one of the top uprising quarterbacks in the league. You know, and I just have thought of him that way, but it is possible that in his division he could slip up a couple to Vrabel, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Richardson goes on you know, who knows what could happen
Yeah.
throughout a season. And I feel like a couple could get away from him. I'd take the under.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I just the division's more open than -175 would suggest. So that's all. I am still high on this Jags team. I just don't know. They're not in that realm of Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo. They're a nice team, but they need some of these young guys to really mature. And they do need Trevor to build on what he did at the end of the year and make it not look like the outlier. Make that the standard for a full season.
Jay,
And
the big
he,
que- the
yeah,
big question mark here before we mail it in on him, Calvin Ridley. He is the
oh
big
yeah,
question mark that, I mean, if he's a stud, I can maybe take back my comments.
yeah. I mean, there's no reason this shouldn't be one of the better offenses. It's just playoff time. They should be in the playoffs. I don't know. I don't know if I think people are kind of overhyping them just a little bit, just a little. Um, and like I was saying, they're really the opposite of them is the Titans at +300. They don't have the talent. They don't have the flash, but you can never count these guys out. You really can't. And they dealt with a lot of bad injuries last year. Um, Derrick Henry, he's 30 now.
Wow.
Um, yeah, is he going to be with this team next year? This is a contract year for him. This is probably, I don't know. This might be the Titans' last hurrah with this current group of Tannehill, Henry,
Yeah.
Vrabel, and Vrabel. Man, he's just the scariest coach in the league to bet against. You never know what he's going to come out with.
They threw Vrabel one bone, and
What's that?
that's DeAndre Hopkins
Oh yeah.
right there at the end.
Uh
And
huh.
that's one thing that, maybe he's kind of seeing what you and I are seeing. He's like, I think we could take a couple from the Jags.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, all it takes is just hit them with something they don't know is coming, and you can get there. But yeah, I mean, uh,
They
look,
just have that moxie to them that I don't know if the Jags have just yet.
well, Derrick Henry is just not a guy you bet against, even at his age.
Mm-hmm.
You got Traylon Burks going into his second year. He's looked great in camp. I've seen some things I didn't know was there with him. You've
Mm-hmm.
Chigozim Okonkwo.
Oh
He's
yeah.
I love.
I mentioned him on my last pod as a breakout player this year.
I love him. I mean,
I like him too.
when Chiefs played him, he torched us. I mean, he
Yeah.
was good. And he just seems like a guy Vrabel loves going to. But then adding DeAndre Hopkins to this mix, now they are not, last year at times, especially when they played the Chiefs, they were like, all we can do is run it. We have
Yeah.
Malik, we have Malik Willis at quarterback, who seemingly sucks at throwing a football. so so we
Yeah,
have
they were definitely handcuffed.
I mean, they were screwed for a little while. But I think we're looking at a different team that's improved by all respects, with a great head coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They're
my
hard of.
my biggest concern with their offense is that O line. Taylor Lewan's retired. Shout out to the boy.
Yeah.
Ben Jones, Nate Davis, they're gone. They did draft Peter Skoronski, first round pick, and a lot of people are high on him. He was pretty dominant in college. So he should come in, help that O line a little bit, but that's my major concern on their offense is that O line. They gotta give Tannehill. They gotta give Levis if Levis gets in there at all. They gotta give him some time. Um, but I do think it's going to be Tannehill most of the year, don't you, Drew?
No doubt.
Will Levis is a guy that all us college football fans were like, why are you going to draft him when he was rumored to be like a top 5 pick? We were all like, why? Because he was not very good at all, especially last year in college. So he's just one
Well,
of those toolsy guys that the GMs fall in love with.
I mean, is it possible that Vrabel had some say in this?
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, you look at it as, in my opinion, you know, it reminds me of George Karlaftis, who was, in some eyes, especially PFF last year, rated as like a top 10 draft pick. And he was he was stiff and he was this and that. But the experts looked at him and said, this guy's great. They said the same thing about Levis. I mean, in all mock drafts, he was rated pretty high. And to get him in the second round, there's no quarterback controversy. No,
Mm-hmm.
there's no headline.
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill is starting this year. Will Levis gets to sit behind him, compete with Malik Willis, who's going to be the guy. They'll have fun and they'll be motivated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point.
I think it's a good. I think it's a good mix over there behind him.
Yeah, and Vrabel will make sure there's no weirdness going on either.
Exactly.
That's a great point. Will Levis definitely needs a year or two to just sit and watch and develop because he does have some really good physical tools, and I'll be rooting for him. One of my best friends from Oklahoma, he's from Tennessee. He's a big Titans fan. Really is hoping Will Levis can be the guy. But I don't know. Defensively, we got to shut out Kevin Byard because he's the best safety in the league, no doubt about it. In my opinion, he's just everywhere, dude.
Shout out.
Every time I play the Titans in Madden, I cannot throw it to his side of the field. He's incredible. And Vrabel just has this defense. They just always play with an edge. They extended the defensive lineman Jeffrey Simmons. He's a dog. Harold Landry should be back after missing last year with an injury. He's a dog. Um, it's not an extremely talented unit, but like they usually come out and just have some fire game plans with Vrabel. It's crazy. And this might be my sauna hot take of the week, but I really don't think it's that hot. I think Mike Vrabel's the best coach in the league, even though hasn't won a Super Bowl. I just think he gets the most out of his guys.
No doubt.
And if I was starting a team today and I could take one coach, I'd take Mike Vrabel.
I would not disagree with you. He broke the record maybe 2 years or 3 years ago for having the most players on a team throughout a season, and he still made the playoffs with that
Yep.
team. Incredible.
Yeah. It's just like in the gambling too, that's really why I think of that because I've been burnt by the Titans a lot, just thinking, oh, Chargers versus Titans. The Chargers are better. I'll bet on the Chargers. Nope. That doesn't go good. Vrabel has cost me a lot over the years, and I've never bet. I really don't like to go against him if I can help it.
Well, I think
Those
we passed with the AFC West, but just a quick mention. Don't don't forget that when you're betting with the Chargers this year.
yeah,
They have their whole stable of people still there.
yeah.
Nothing's changed. Offensive coordinator, okay, but it's they'll still charge her, I believe.
Oh, I know.
Anyway, back
It's
to
just it's incredible how it happens.
yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it on the Titans. Their schedule is ninth easiest, and they have one of the better net rest edges in the league, plus 11. So nice little situation there. 7.5 wins is their win total. I kind of like that over. I think Vrabel gets them to 8 wins.
I love 8 wins for them. I think it's very doable. I love their team. They love their team because they bought DeAndre Hopkins late.
Yeah,
They love their team. They think they can, they think they'll win it.
yeah. They just have a lot of self belief on that team, and it starts with the head man. They just play with that edge that you want. Um, and they're a lot of fun to watch. Moving on, we got the Colts, Drew, plus 700 to win this division. And I'm hoping for Pat McAfee and Jim Irsay's sake that they are better this year.
Yeah.
They drafted Anthony Richardson, has a lot of people excited. And it's really the first time that the quarterback position, the Colts have really, since Andrew Luck retired, they really like went all in on a quarterback and weren't just doing these stop gaps. So I think their fans are excited about that. And this was a squad last year that was favored to win this division. And, you know, things went haywire for him. Jim Irsay just made a wild move, bringing in Jeff Saturday to coach the team. It was kind of awesome there for a little bit. They won
Matt
their
Ryan.
first game. They won that first game versus the shitty Raiders, and just the press conference after, and him just getting the boys fired up. I loved it. But it doesn't mean it wasn't just an insane move by Jim Irsay.
Hey, listen, the the Colts, Pat McAfee, this is his big claim to Colts fame last year was beating the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. They did it.
Yeah,
The refs gave them one. I mean, they won one.
I can't believe that was the dumbest game of the year last year. I think I had the Chiefs in a parlay or like a teaser or something, and it just
It was
completely
worth watching.
screwed.
I
I
mean,
think I actually bet on the Chiefs just straight up that week.
dude, Chris Jones, they gave him a penalty for saying mean words, and that's what lost us.
It was
It's
ridiculous.
it
It was
sucked.
ridiculous.
It was fourth down, and he said mean words, and they gave him 15 yards.
Yeah, I don't
Anyway,
get it.
anyway, well,
But
I'm coming in unbiased with the Colts. I promise.
um, but yeah, they bring in the Eagles' offensive coordinator Shane Steichen. It's going to be his show now, and that's interesting because the way they used Jalen Hurts last year in that offense, you got to think Richardson comes in. He has just as a freaky physical profile as Hurts does, and that had a lot of GMs drooling across the league during the draft process. And Anthony Richardson's interesting because just 13 career starts at Florida. I don't really think I know the full picture of this guy. Had some up and down games. Um, but man, he is a freak. If he could just get a little bit of guidance, and if the offensive line should be decent, I mean, it has been over the years, but I don't know, Drew. I think the offensive line's been a little overrated than what people, because there was a couple years ago people were like they thought they had no doubt the best offensive line. I just don't know if I see it. Um,
You know, um, I mean, they have Quentin Nelson, who is a beast. Was not a beast last year, even though I believe he's still the highest paid at his position. Um,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, talent wise, they have one of the greatest offensive lines, but it just didn't show last year. You hope that it
yeah.
was all because of Jeff Saturday. Um, is what you hope, but I don't love that they're they've got some problems right now with Jonathan Taylor
hmm
not financially compensated as he views it, and he's sitting out. and
Yeah.
you just have an awkward vibe with him. I guess having a fake injury that he's quotes
Shit.
from. It's just a weird situation. Um, it be if I was practicing over there, I would it would be in the back of my mind. What are you guys doing with Jonathan Taylor?
Right.
He's
Yeah,
injured.
especially with a rookie quarterback, man. You got to have your stud running back there for the guy. You need to go pay him, Jim Irsay. You need to go
It's
pay the man.
it's it's a delicate situation um, that all of the owners are going through, and Jim Irsay was very non-delicate with how he dealt with it. His
Yeah, so that's a little bit on their offense. Their wide receiving unit's okay, nothing special. But
Pittman Pittman should be a. I mean, if Anthony Richardson is good at throwing the ball, he should have Pittman and Pierce, who are. I like them.
yeah,
I'll I'll argue with you on it if I have to.
no, they're good. I just don't know if they don't have that like superstar that take the top off the defense kind of guy.
I think Pittman is that guy. He showed it last year. It's just
Okay.
I really think Matt Ryan sucked.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that.
I think
He was awful.
Pittman is a guy that if Anthony Richardson is who he is, I really think Pittman is gonna unveil himself as a stud. I saw some tape on him, and he's a good route runner.
Yeah.
Catches the football.
Yeah, he's definitely had some great moments in the NFL so far. So it'd be interesting to see if him and Richardson get on the same page, if he can tear it up this year.
And Alec
Um,
Pierce is something to talk about as well. I mean, I really
yeah.
think Alec Pierce is. I saw his route tree that was done by Reception Perception. He
Hmm.
wins so many routes. I mean, he's a guy that, especially where he's at, he is undervalued for how much he gets himself open.
Hmm. That's
Uh,
interesting.
I mean, it's just this guy, Matt Harmon, who digs into wide receivers and he doesn't watch any quarterback play. He just watches the wide receiver versus DB. And he sees Alec Pierce is successful in a wide variety of routes.
I need to follow this guy. What's his name?
Matt Harmon, MattHarmon.
Okay, I'll add him after this. I love those kind of guys that just dedicate themselves to like one area of football. That's
Uh,
so valuable. That's why I love Twitter so much. Is just all the sports information you can come across.
no doubt.
Um, Another guy I want to shout out on this offense real quick. Maybe a little fantasy sleeper, Drew. What do you think about that tight end, Jelani Woods? I've always thought he was good. He's just a mammoth of a human being.
It's there's another Pat McAfee story here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so they're playing against the Chiefs, and it's it's a goal line play for the Colts, and they throw up a jumper to 6'8" Jelani Woods, and he catches it, gets both feet in bounds, and walks, towards the end of the end zone. And there's Pat McAfee and his crew right there. They
Oh shit.
that that part, and him and Jelani Woods are just looking at each other, going, "Yeah," fully flexed and everything.
I
And
love it.
you know, and he just swears by. He's like, and he even has pressed um, Shane Steichen when he came in. He's told this story and he's done the whole number, and he's like, "Why are we not throwing to a 6'8" guy in the end zone every time down there
Yeah.
that can catch it?" And he could, and he just it's Pat McAfee's thing. He loves Jelani Woods, and he thinks he catch any touchdown that comes to
That's
him.
great. Yeah, he's huge, man. He played at Oklahoma State, so that's kind of how I first heard of him. And then he transferred to Virginia, and he's had some moments for the Colts. Um, Defensively, I really think Shaq Leonard, the middle linebacker, he's kind of the closest thing I've seen to Ray Lewis, just with the way his passion and leadership from that linebacking position. If he stays healthy, this has been a defense that's played pretty damn well over the years, despite the team's lack of success. They drafted 6 defensive players in the draft this year, so there should be some nice youthful energy on that side of the ball. I really like, that guy Quiddy Pay, Drew, all name team, the defensive lineman. I like him a lot. I think he'd come into his own off the edge this year.
I mean, they
And
didn't bring back Yannick Ngakoue. He just signed with somebody else. That was kind of shocking to me.
yeah, yeah, he's a good player. But I think that they just like Quiddy Pay. I think
Oh,
him, DeForest Buckner, one of the best defensive tackles you'll find. I think that front seven should do some work. It'll be up to the secondary. That'll be the question mark of this defense is the secondary. Um, they lose what's his face to the Cowboys, Stephon Gilmore.
yeah. Oh, you said it. They were the favorites last year. Stephon Gilmore thought he was signing with a playoff team
Mm-hmm.
last
Yeah,
year. It was sad to see for him. I was wishing he got traded during the deadline. I wanted to take him.
yeah. But yeah, that's what I got on the Colts schedule wise. Third easiest, and they're +4 on net rest. So Jim Irsay should be happy about that.
Yeah.
6.5 wins. 6.5 wins, man. I kind of like that over. And I just see this division being a lot closer than the other people. They think Jacksonville's just going to run away with it. I think it's a 3-horse race with these three. And I don't think the Texans, we'll get to them here now. They're 10 to
Well,
1.
I do want to ask before we move on to the Texans, I do want to know because the whole key to this, right, is Anthony Richardson. And you mentioned the 13 games,
Yeah.
and combined performance, one of the best ever. Is Anthony Richard a stud or dud? I mean, that's what he is, stud or dud. And if he's a stud,
Yeah.
it could be the division winner. If he's a dud, could be last. What are your thoughts over there at QB, real quick?
Yeah. Well, I think his running ability is going to allow him in that offense. I think it's going to give him a nice floor, and I do think this is a team. If when a guy runs that much, you leave yourself open to injuries. So hopefully he can stay healthy. But if he does, I like this team to get at least to 7 wins. And the Pat McAfee factor. I mean, I might have to throw some money on that just for fun because I do. I think if they run if they run the same offense they ran in Philly last year, Anthony Richardson should be able to step in and do a little Jalen Hurts acting performance and get them to 7 wins. They have third easiest schedule, so I don't know. I wouldn't sleep on the Colts not winning this division. I wouldn't sleep on +700. Maybe throw half a unit on that.
Well, what do you think of Jonathan Taylor's situation? Does that affect the team at
Yeah,
all?
yeah, that's the thing too, because he's their best player, and they need to do right by him. And that if they don't, that can affect the whole vibe of the team. So that's a good point. Something to keep in mind. But you would think Jim Irsay would open it up his wallet for Jonathan Taylor. He's carried their team.
Been very outspoken about it. You know, Jim Irsay, he's an old guy. When he comes on the Pat McAfee show, you can see him. He's a little bit senile, if you
Yeah,
know what I mean. He's a little bit up there in age, and he's flying. God bless him. He's flying a whale in the air, way
I
high up in
love
the
it.
sky. There's going to be a whale sighting.
I love it.
You
Man
know,
of the people.
and he's spending like $100 million on that, and not Jonathan Taylor. He just is a guy who has his principles, and he's getting up there in age. He's just a little crazy now. You have to
Yeah.
love parts of him, but you know, he got up and he said very firmly, this is crap that running backs are asking for a new deal. We agreed to a deal. You play on your deal.
Yeah. He's very
He's
old
not
school like that.
he ain't gonna change from that.
You got to respect him though, man. Just
No doubt.
Colts. What an interesting team the Colts are. I'm
No
excited to
doubt.
see what the Anthony Richardson offense looks like.
By the way,
Um,
just quick free shout out, and then we'll go on. But he's got his, Jim Irsay. He has a traveling museum.
oh
He
yeah,
When museums go out of business, he buys all of their items and he travels with them, and he has a band that plays. Yeah,
this is incredible.
he'll roll up into your town, and a band comes out, and
We got to
then
see him.
he shows you Russian spy equipment, and he shows you dinosaur bones, and it's free.
Oh my gosh,
And that's what he's got rolling around. Anyway,
that's incredible. What a life. What a
right,
life Jim Irsay's led.
right.
Um, yeah. Last team here in the AFC South, the Houston Texans, 10-1 to win this division. Big underdogs in this division, and it's a new era in Houston. New coach, D'Amico Ryans. He's actually drafted by the Texans in 2006. He gets his first shot at being a head coach, and I like him a lot. I think the Texans they've been a bit of a mess over the years of having two one and done coaches, having the Deshaun Watson mess. I think they're just happy to kind of start new here, new era, and D'Amico Ryans he felt comfortable enough to take on this challenge because it is a challenge with this roster to win.
Well,
Um,
I'll tell you this. In my personal opinion, whatever their over under is, I'll take. I don't even know it yet. I'm going blind on it.
yeah, yeah, it's gonna be an uphill battle. Offensively, they bring in C.J. Stroud, second overall pick, and he's gonna be the man under center. And I'm pretty high on C.J. Stroud. I had him right behind Bryce Young, and if he shows off that running ability like he did versus Georgia, he might have. If he did that more throughout the year, he might have been my number one over Bryce Young. I just didn't see enough of it on tape. But if he builds on that, sky's the limit for CJ Stroud. I really think he could be the first Ohio State quarterback that hasn't busted in a long time because they've kind of had an ugly history of that.
I'll
Um,
take the side on it. I'll take the bust side
okay, okay, we might have to
because,
we might have to go ahead.
well, listen. So there was smoke during the draft. I'm not going to say it's fire, but there was some smoke during the draft that he was going to be falling, and it might have been planted by another team. That's very possible. But they had somebody come out from one of these companies that, contracts with uh, most of the teams in the league, and they provide
Hmm.
this quarterback score.
Yeah, that VR stuff.
It was something like that. It was reflexes, and it was like
Yeah.
it was something of just your raw responses to
Hmm.
stimulus they throw at you. and they scored him low. And
Yeah,
they
they
went
did.
and went on the Pat McAfee show, and they defended it, and they said this stuff isn't supposed to be leaked out. But yeah, we score. That's what we do, and that's basically what they said. So
Yeah, I remember
it
hearing
just
that
made
too.
me think someone knows something, and there's a bust every draft, and it very could well be a Ohio State quarterback. It makes me think. It
Yeah,
makes me think.
I would. I don't know. He balled out versus Georgia so heavy. I mean, that Georgia defense is so good. It'll be interesting to see how it goes with him year one. And that O
Had some
line,
prolific white.
the O line has some names up front. They should at least be serviceable for Stroud. A sleeper, Drew. I want to talk about wide receiver Nico Collins. I think uh, I think he could come in and do some nice things this year. I don't know where he goes in drafts. I assume at like the very back end of the draft. That's a guy
Yeah,
to keep an eye out for. I think he could be the wide receiver one on this team by season's end.
believe it or not, I do target him a lot.
Yeah,
After my whole speech, I do target him.
yeah, and they signed former Cowboy Dalton Schultz, the tight end, and he should be a nice safety blanket for Stroud. Guy that just always seems like he was open for the Cowboys over the years.
They did let go of Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, another guy that they kind of traded, I guess, if you will, Schultz for Cooks. So
They let Cooks go for a pretty low price as well.
yeah, um, I like him on the Cowboys. Defensively, D'Amico Ryans, he's going to bring over his 4-3 front. That shouldn't be that much different than what the Texans have been running or tried to run over the years. They were abysmal versus the run last year, Drew. Dead last in rushing yards allowed. And that's gonna have to be a focus in training camp and OTAs. You would think D'Amico Ryans is gonna take that personally that they can stop the run this year. Um, they traded.
You think the head coach can turn it all around?
I think no, but I think he's gonna try and bring in a winning culture there. I do think D'Amico Ryans he gets his guys to play with an edge, and I think guys like playing for him a lot. So, and they got some playmakers. They traded up that third overall pick and got Will Anderson. His presence on the edge, I think that's going to be a nice little chess piece. And they're going to be banking on him because there's not much talent outside of him. But another guy, Drew, I talked about on my breakout players last pod, the safety, Jalen Petre. I think he's a dog. I watched a lot of him play at Baylor. Just a really good safety. He's just has a knack for being around the football. So watch out for him.
Did
There's
you
some,
see any film on him from the last year?
yeah. I love watching this guy.
Did he do pretty good with them last year?
He he like accounted for like for like 18% of their tackles, pass deflections, sacks, whatever, and that was
Oh,
like a huge number for a safety. Because I kind of been looking at maybe doing some IDP leagues, and when I read that, I was like, yeah, that's a guy that I would target in a draft. I don't know if you know much about those leagues.
no, not much.
Yeah, I don't know where to join one at. I'm sure I can find one, but they also signed former Niner Jimmy Ward, so he's got some familiarity with their scheme. And the secondary, it's got some nice players. If they can win first down and not get gashed up front in the running game, I think the Texans defense can take a little bit of a step forward. I wouldn't be surprised to see them be a little frisky.
Okay.
Schedule wise, seventh easiest. I think all these teams have pretty easy schedules just because they don't expect the AFC South to be very tough. -2 net rest edge. So 6.5 wins is the over under here. You got any
Give
feel
me
for
the
that?
under.
The under?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be anything good this year at all. I think
That's
they're competing for the number one pick.
Yeah, that feels like kind of a high number for them. Yeah, I'm kind of high on their defense a little bit, but that seems way too high. 6.5. I don't think
Yeah,
but the schedule is easy, so I don't know. They'll be. They're one of those teams we kind of have no idea. New head coach, new quarterback, just a lot of newness. So,
yeah,
but yeah,
and really
that's gonna wrap us up.
no
Drew, you got
stars
anything
otherwise.
else? Sorry, my bad.
No, yeah, I mean, I just to wrap it up, I just think they just don't have the talent this year.
Yeah.
There's some, there is some promising young pieces and a promising head coach, but not this year for them. My wrapping thoughts, I do want to give a little tech corner.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So, all right, what I want to say for the tech corner is just something conceptual. Okay, it's it is a new piece of technology. The technology is artificial intelligence that uses its brain is, the intelligence behind it. And what they've done is smart people have used the tweets and the Reddits and everything like that to train this thing on how humans communicate.
Uh huh.
And so now this brain of the internet knows how to talk to you. And the big thing is, it's like a very general thing right now. You can get in and talk to it and it'll give you pretty general terms. But if you can think of artificial intelligence as like a horse that needs to be trained,
Mm-hmm.
it just needs very specific instructions. Once it knows everything that you want it to provide you, it'll provide you.
That's
It
sweet.
just needs to know the instructions, and there is a website that will allow you to practice giving it instructions. The website is called typingmind.com.
Okay.
That's my tech corner.
Hell
Is,
yeah.
you know, if you want to practice it, it's right there.
That's so cool, man. I can't wait to learn more about it. I've really my tech corner is just talking more about chat on. It's AI like you're talking about. I've just been using it. It's really been a good resource to find some good workouts for me at the gym,
Hmm,
and it's helped me learn like which muscle groups pair well together, like do chest and shoulders together, and then work out your back and biceps together. Those are just two examples, and it's just made my gym time really efficient because half the battle about the gym is like kind of feel overwhelming a little bit, but if you know what you're going to go in there and do, then you can just take it one step at a time, and I found that to be a really useful resource
that's
to
awesome.
chat on. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's great.
awesome.
But yeah, Drew, you got anything else you want to shout
Yeah,
out before we get out of here?
I do want to shout out. I am very pumped. I think very soon in the future, and Jay, I have a date to tell you. You and me, I think, are going to be doing a live podcast together. Let's
Hell
let's
yeah.
do that. Yeah, we're doing a fantasy football draft, and I'm pumped to host you here, man.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Do we know the date yet?
Yes, it is going to be Labor Day weekend.
Okay, bet. I'll get on my plane ticket when we get done with this. Drew and I have been talking a little bit this week about it. We're gonna do this draft together and maybe watch some college football and get a live pod out there for the people. Should be a ton
Yeah,
of fun.
yeah.
Well, all right, buddy. That's gonna do it for the AFC South for that tier of running backs. Hopefully, we
Wait,
could
one more.
shed some light.
Shout out one more thing.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing job. You fucking landed a Dallas Mavericks blogging job.
Oh yeah. Thanks, bro.
You're
Yeah,
out
I'm
there blogging
super.
on the Mavericks. You have anything to shout out on that real quick?
Yeah, just follow Matt. Well, I don't know what the correct Twitter handle is, but just follow me on my Twitter, jbirdie23. Once I think it's gonna be every Thursday. I'm gonna have a Mavs blog out there for the people. So feel free to send me some recommendations, anything to talk about. Super pumped about it. It's just kind of a perfect starting point to kind of get my writing out there because I love doing the podcast and everything. But writing really is kind of like my true calling, I think, Drew. So it's just exciting to get an outlet to share that. And I love the Mavs. I've been a MFFL Mavs fan for life since I can remember, and it would be like the ultimate dream, Drew, to like meet Mark Cuban because he's an entrepreneur like us, and that would be incredible. So it's just one step at a time, but yeah, I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a dream job, honestly. So
Right on, brother. Well,
yeah,
we're chasing the dream together, Drew. One pod at a time. We're gonna get our names out there, and these Sunday pods are a ton of fun. Look forward to it every week.
me too, man.
Well, all right, buddy. That's gonna wrap us up. Find your inner pirate. Peace out.
Peace.